Hello, welcome back to another week of the European Tour, Picks and Bets. Skylar, Hoke here with you. Tom Jacobs, Ryder Cup. Oh, you want to just move on or you want to talk about it? What are you thinking?
So I'm fine talking about it because it's what I expected. And although the fight was so tame from us, I just couldn't see any other result. I mean, we spoke about it last week. I spoke about another couple of shows. I couldn't see anything other than an American victory. What I don't like, and he's been getting a lot of the benefit of the doubt, is Padraig Harrington. I thought was terrible. I genuinely think he was poor. I think he put Rory out with Poulter, and I think it was like you look at who he's been paired with. He's been paired with Andy Sullivan and Olison the first day in the last two Ryder Cups, and it felt the same kind of thing. Like, okay, they've done it before, but now you're taking out a guy that isn't suited to the golf course, is coming to the tail end of his career. I just thought, what you have to put Rory with either Lowry or Hovland, and then you could have got them to just fire off one another. I know we spoke about it, didn't we? About whether you spread the three guys out in Rahm, Rory, and Hovland, or whether you kind of stack two of them together. I wanted Rahm and Hovland. That wasn't going to happen. And it really, I guess it worked out with Rahm and Garcia, so you can't really complain too much. But he spent all week trying to pour water on the fact that nationalities are going to put together. That's why Rory and Lowry weren't going to play together, blah, blah, blah. And then he just did it. And I was like, well, you've either abandoned that or just lied your way through it, which either way is not great. I couldn't account for Paul Casey getting 0 points throughout the whole week. I think I could have made more putts than Paul Casey last week, and I'm terrible at golf, like legitimately terrible. He could have played DJ 100 times and lost 99 of them. So it's tough. I mean, look, America deserved it from top to bottom. They were great. Obviously DJ is going to get the plaudits, Morikawa is going to get the plaudits, but Scotty Scheffler's an absolute killer. Just rookie sensation. I mean, none of them are rookies, really. I mean, Scheffler, I guess, because he hasn't won on tour, but the other six guys have had an extra year on top to kind of get themselves into the shape they were. So I'll do all the talking, the loathing of the Ryder Cup, let you just revel in the success. You guys deserved it. And we kind of took a massive offence to the Alan Shipnuck article a couple of years ago about how there was going to be a decade of dominance for Ryder Cup and we win Paris and shoved it in his face. It's probably going to happen. Like, it may happen because looking at the next Ryder Cup team, it's quite depressing.
I'm going to be there. 2023 Rome. You cannot already shovel this down me. You know, people I had in my DMs calling me Benedict Sky, saying I'm a traitor, saying that here I am rooting against the United States. At the end of the day, a lot of my rooting interest. I mean, I'm probably a handicapper, a gambler at heart. So if I'm going to wager a certain way, that's ultimately who I'm rooting for. So DraftKings exposure was heavy on the European Tour, the European Ryder Cup side. Obviously did not do very, very well, but felt the strategy was still strong. I mean, Fitzy, my sleeper pick was 0-3. I cannot believe they threw Westwood out there with him twice. Especially in the opening match. But
that's the thing, right? I think that both of this is going to sound ridiculous because we were so wrong. But Casey played 4 matches, would have played 5 if he'd shown anything in that second day. And Fitz played in 3 matches, right? And that was all you probably needed him to do. And if he'd have won one of those, he probably would have played in 4. So the strategy was right. I just cannot, I do not know what goes through Padraig Harrington's head when he looks at the list and goes, you know what, we'll just chuck Westwood and Fitzpatrick out together. Like, that'll work. Like, they are the 2 weakest components of the team. The only link they've got is the fact that they shared a caddy once, or once upon a time he was Westwood's caddy. You've got the most aggressive putter on the team versus the most tentative. So you've got Fitzpatrick going for every single one, knocking it 6 foot past, and then going Westwood just absolutely pooping his pants, trying to hit one back. Like, how can that work? Like, I could look at that and go, that's a terrible decision. How can someone with Padraig Harrington's experience of winning major championships go, that's great, send them out?
It was tough. It was tough. But again, I will take that stand for the payoff that could have happened. Daniel Berger, I would say, was the equivalent of what Fitzy was on the U.S. side, and Berger captain lineups were outstanding. So, I think there was opportunity. Of course, you can say that many weeks in golf didn't go our way, but guess what, Tom? We have another week to keep at it. I guess 2 years for the Ryder Cup to come back. Hopefully individual ticket sales are coming soon. I know they just weekly tickets. Decided not to go on the $3,000 per day premium experience. Touch rich. But I'm hoping to
$1,000 weekly ticket or the £1,000 weekly ticket sold out in instances as well. I mean, I don't need to be there a week. Like, I think if I'm there for the practice days, it's a great event. Like, it's a bucket list thing. And if you get to Italy and I get to Italy, it's gonna be great. We can meet up and Guido will be there and it'll all be happy stories. But it is a rich event, right? Like the European polos were selling for £1,000. That's like $2,000. Like, what is going on? Like,
for sure.
This is legitimately one of the worst things to come out of that Ryder Cup. Anyway, rant's over. We've got a great event this week.
Yes,
an excellent event actually for the European Tour. Let's let you dive right into it.
Yeah. So Alfred Dunhill Links Championship. We did not see this event last year on the calendar. It is, outside of the BMW PGA Championship, I would say the second most popular event. I think that has a fairway.
Yeah.
Valderrama's up there too in my head. But I would say this for me kind of takes the icing with the courses that we do get to see, because we do have, of course, the old course this week, St. Andrews, will be played, not the St. Andrews that people thought was played a few weeks back. The actual old course, St. Andrews, Carnoustie, and then Kingsbarn will be rotated on the first 54 holes. So you only have a 54 hole cut. And then you will see the Sunday final finish. This event has seen its fair share of dominance from top end players. Tyrrell Hatton, back-to-back years, arguably should have won 3 in a row, but Man Rocket, Lucas Bjerregaard, stole a victory. In 2018, it would have been, I know you hit that outright winner. And then Victor Perez came through with a breakthrough win 2 years ago, 2020, not 2019, when he had his victory there. So we've seen a couple of kind of breakouts from golfers that are really good ball strikers. Ones that I think at the end of the day, my process for while I'm attacking this is just keeping it simple. Golfers that for an extended period of time, like Perez and Bjerregaard and obviously Hatton, had just been playing at a high caliber of golf. I found myself in a little bit of an outright rut. Again, the 18-hole market has been fabulous. Haven't been betting it as much as I need to, but
we have to do it this week.
Yeah, well, we're going to get screwed because the 3 courses, probably not going to get odds and probably hit 3 FRLs across the different courses. So we'll see. But I just really want to simplify the process and just dial in to golfers that I feel have a good value in their outright number and have been in a consistent amount of form throughout the summer. Instead of maybe chasing a few things like I tend to do, and I'm okay with doing it most times. But for this type of event on these type of courses, I think there is some good opportunity out here. What's your take on how to kind of approach the 3 courses or skill sets that stand out to you?
So I think that the trouble with this kind of event and set of courses is it's very easy to sort yourself out of things. Like, you have to take guys that play links well. You have to take guys that can play well in high winds, because there's going to be really bad wind on Friday, 40-mile-an-hour gusts. There's going to be rain on Thursday, right? And if you just keep, we're talking about this on Monday night or Monday afternoon for you guys. We can't predict what the wind and weather is going to do. That can change in a couple of days' time. We haven't got the tee time. So you've got to go with guys that you think have got the skill sets to do it, right? As you've just spoken about, ball striking is just always going to come out on top. Driving, not so much this week, because I could hit St. Andrews fairways, and as I said earlier, I'm a terrible golfer. But irons are massive. And this idea that, I think there's going to be people that we're going to come on to later, and there's going to be these American guys that people are just going to put a line through. And people are going to see people like Billy Horschel and go, no, he's not going to play well in the weather. Get rid of him. And you think, watch the Open Championship. Watch how many Americans win that event. And I know that they're the best players in the world, and I know that not all the time it's linksy conditions, but it is just ridiculous to rule them out. So I wouldn't do anything like that. I'm interested, Guy, on your take for the European guys that came back from the Ryder Cup. Like, we had that run from the President's Cup in 2019, where there was 7 of the 10 winners on the PGA Tour were from the President's Cup. I think 5 of them were on the international team. But it's such a different dynamic, I think, that when they lost at the President's Cup, it was expected. They put up a good fight. A lot of stars came out of that feeling really good. The European guys were just dejected on Sunday. Like, crying everywhere. Like Rory couldn't get his words out. Lowry was in tears. Poulter literally looked like he was going to collapse in a heap. And we'd love to see that. Like as European fans, you'd love to see the passion. The European Tour fans would love to see the passion. How does Shane Lowry come back from that event? I mean, he's not won this event in the past, so it's not like he's a course horse anyway. He's a great links player, but he's going to get into there on Wednesday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon. He's got to walk around with a pro-am guy for 4 days. But how does it? The first thing that's going to come into that presser is not Shane. You've been in great form. You love links. How do you feel about this week? It's going to be Shane. You just lost a Ryder Cup. How do you feel? And that has got to be the what I mean. I just don't know. I mean, him, Tommy Fleetwood, Tyrrell Hatton. I mean, Tyrrell Hatton's not been in great form anyway. Tommy Fleetwood isn't putting great, although I thought he played okay at a Ryder Cup. And that was just about Shane. I just wonder if maybe the two guys that make the most appeal out there are Horshaw and Noren.
Oh, I agree. And I never want to simply discredit travel or, fatigue. These guys travel first class. You could go for an afternoon nap and you're halfway around the world. But yeah,
probably less hungover this time.
For sure. You go through an emotional set of days there. So I guess for our show purposes, they're unbettable anyway, in my opinion. I loved what Lowry did do. He was unbelievable on Friday afternoon when he was out there. Saturday afternoon was fun too. I love the motivational quotes that he had. But I mean, what are they, sub 14-1, all three of them? I would pick Billy, if I had to pick anyone out of the bunch, especially how he played BMW PGA Championship. Tony Finau was going to come over. He pulled out. I would have probably rode that high a little bit more. I mean, his outright probably would have been, 10-1 too, but I would have been more intrigued there. DraftKings pricing is not out yet this week. I think we're actually, unfortunately, running into, a lull of golf DFS because NFL football is coming up. So the contest will be probably smaller again, but I will be finding them and I might be mixing in some of those guys, but from the betting purposes, no chance. I'm realistically not starting my card until 40-1. But there are intriguing names as we roll down the list. I think Alex Noren is probably the top of those that I think is worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, Alex Noren he's a guy that's been touted as an open champion potential for years to come. So obviously, won in Scotland in the past. We see his links form everywhere. He's just been brilliant. And what he was doing on the PGA Tour before, he was legitimately in the Ryder Cup conversation. I mean, he probably will be someone that make it in Rome if he keeps up the form that he's in. We know the caliber of player he is. Outside of probably Hatton and Lowry, I'd say he's probably maybe Fleetwood, I suppose. He is the class guy in the field. I was actually probably more interested in the couple of guys at the 28-1 range that I haven't gone for in the end. But Thomas Pieters, who obviously you're a big fan of. And the easiest thing to do with him is to look at his course form and go, it's not great. Just put a line for him. And I think there's probably two contributions to that because he's a great driver of the ball, and that kind of gets negated when everyone can hit the fairway and drive it pretty long. He may not like the kind of 5-6 hour rounds that you have to play with the pro-ams. It could also just be that it's just not a great setup for him. And I don't think he's the type that can struggle in any conditions. I think he can do whatever he wants. I just wonder if he checks out if a bad shot goes off. I mean, I've spoken to guys in the past and they said they love links golf for a week, and then when you take a 3-week stretch, you're fed up because your 4-iron just doesn't go where it's meant to go. So that's the one concern with Pieters. The other one is Brandon Grace, in the sense that he's obviously won the PGA Tour at the Puerto Rico Open not so long ago. Came back to form at the Dutch Open last time out. Kyle Phillips designed Kings Barnes. He's obviously a winner of this event. He's got a course record. So there was appeal there, but it kind of comes to the next guy up for me before I looked into betting.
Yeah, I kind of had and can lead into kind of a look at both of the Belgian bombers from the sense of, Peter's going 3 top 20s in a row, catching that strike of form. The infamous club into the bush after snapping over his knee from the Open Championship will always live in memory for links golf for Thomas Pieters in my head. But 28 was just a little too thin for my blood, even though I am saying that while betting Thomas Dietrich, who has yet to find himself a win at 40-1. D3 stretch of golf, we were quite intrigued. It was at the BMW PGA Championship when he had to get disqualified for signing an incorrect scorecard, which shouldn't exist in 2021. But it was enough that he actually, was quite decent in those 2 rounds where he could have found himself in the mix over the weekend. Comes back to the Dutch Open, T4 there. That is the Kyle Phillips design. If you're, using that same kind of link into there, and he had a terrible Italian Open, but he had a really good stretch of golf before that, including that Scottish Open where he lost out in the playoff to Min Woo Lee, and one hole, to judge somebody if they're a winner or a loser, or if you get the horn blown in your backswing on putting, like he did to bogey late on Sunday at the Scottish Open. It's not enough for me to say this guy can't do it. He has multiple T2 finishes, in his last 10 events. So I just think there's enough there when I'm comparing Peters and him. They were kind of lumped together in my head. And I'm just ultimately going to take a little bit more of the outright number compared to 28-1. I can get an each way with D3 at 40. So that's where I am leading off my card for the week.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a guy that kind of hates these certainties of they're going to win, right? Everyone says he will win, and it's only a matter of time. And I don't like that because golf is golf. We've seen guys that deserve to win that don't win for 20 years. Thomas Dietrich is about as close as a certainty to winning the European Tour as I'm pretty happy to stick my neck out on the line and say he'll do it. I think, like you said, the step forward at the Scottish Open was massive, I think, because I think there are times in the past where he has chucked it away. And I think this time around, it wasn't the case. I think he had a couple of unlucky situations. I think the Min Woo Lee played incredibly well to get the victory in the first place. So when it's out of your control like that, sometimes we talk about you're good and then you have to get lucky to win sometimes. And it's a bit like Tony Finau, right? I mean, you can't even put them in the same breath of golf. Like Tony Finau is elite and Thomas Dietrich has the potential to be there. Tony Finau doesn't win very often, and it's because he's got really, really unlucky in situations, and he has thrown some away. And it's exactly the same with Dietrich on the European Tour. And I think he is what Finau is on the PGA Tour, is on the European Tour.
Absolutely.
So, I like you said, I'd rather take 40-1 about him being able to do it than 28-1 that Peters is going to do it, because you've got to rely on Peters being in the right mindset, not being advertised by the win, not putting down the 5. Whereas I think Dietrich it's just a matter of if and when. And I think there's probably a stretch of golf coming up now where, I'd like him for sort of like DP World Tour and things like that, where, really big events do it, but you don't know what odds he's going to be that week. I think 40-1 in a field that looks stacked on paper, but when you feel comfortable probably ruling out a couple of them, is a pretty good price. And
Absolutely.
And that's how I felt about Robert McIntyre as well. And there couldn't be someone more critical than Robert McIntyre than me, I don't think. I think I am probably...
You definitely are.
Yeah, probably too much. And I think what it is I like to go against the grain, but I also get to a point where I get so sick of hearing the same name. And like I just said, I hate certainties. And like when he lost to Casey in Abu Dhabi, or Qatar, wherever it was, earlier in the year, there was like, right, he's going to be on the Ryder Cup team. Like, you're going to see him at Whistling Straits, and he's going to win the Open Championship at some point. And it's just like, look, come on, like, just let the guy play. Like, he won the Cyprus Showdown with all greatest respect, nothing special. He's had chances. He hasn't even had that many. It's not like Dietrich we're seeing. He's had all these multiple top 2 finishes. He's had a few very, very good events. And, admittedly, they've come in major championships. So why am I betting him this week is probably the question that people are asking after saying all that. But we talked about the fact that his form has just fallen off a cliff. And I think a lot of that, right, is I think he got caught up in, I don't think golfers do this very often, but they do it because I've seen evidence of it, is he would just type Robert McIntyre into Twitter, and he'll just see everyone going, oh, he's going to make the Ryder Cup team, he's going to win a major. And you start to believe that yourself. And then you listen to the Sky Sports broadcast and says, Robert McIntyre's going to win the Ryder Cup team, you're going to win the Open. You're like, I don't really do much else. Might have a day off practicing. Maybe I'll go and chase my PGA Tour card in the Corn Ferry finals. And you think you're entitled to do that. Like, he is entitled to be a PGA Tour player. And there's just so many good players about that it's not that easy to do. And you see the more humble guys, you see Schwab, you see Rye getting through to that stage. And maybe I don't think he's egotistical. I think that people are on his behalf, and he's just kind of got caught up. But 2 weeks now since Wentworth was in the rear view. All the Ryder Cup chatter was gone. All the disappointment of missing that PJ Tour card is gone. He's had 2 weeks at home. He's a real homeboard. He lives in Oban in Scotland, which is pretty remote, very homely. He said even if he was on the PJ Tour, he would just get a flight to there every day, every week, whatever. So, he loves that. I think just those 2 weeks at home, R&R, just forget about what's happened over the last few weeks. Get back to just doing what you do, because what he was doing is what led him to that point anyway. He didn't need to change anything. He's now going to play in the Dunhill Links, where I think he was 26th on debut, which doesn't sound that great, but I think he started off pretty slow. And he should be great in his conditions. Like, it's very easy to say a Scottish guy would be good in links, but playing home, he's a great iron player. He's good with his driver, and if anywhere is good for a bad putter, it's probably where someone's going to struggle with big double breakers and massive shared greens.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a sucker for Bob. I'm also a sucker for some good form, which of course has fallen off. So when picking between the two, my choice was quite easy. But I mean, I'm rooting for it. I would love to see that snap back into form. You're getting more juice in the number than you probably would have had he made the cut at the BMW PGA and not even sniffed contention. But yeah, no, I'm always rooting for McIntyre. And now, of course, with pressure off, there's really nothing to play for, DP World Tour if you want, race to buy points. But it's just kind of pressure free and start with a clean slate, which is, no better opportunity for Bob McIntyre. The one that I'm going to next is a golfer, we chatted about, arguably the last 6 weeks with the form that he has shown and the ability he has to be Bjerregaard light. If you remember Bjerregaard in 2019 or 2018, that summer, literally one of the best ball strikers on the planet Earth. That's that entire summer, off the tee, just, out of control. Approach even better. It was just trying to find, anything with the flat stick, and he almost did it in Omega. Of course, came back a few weeks later and had his victory here. I think Sean Crocker can do the same thing. And it's tough to pull the trigger because of what we've seen on Sunday, but they have progressively gotten better. He's not playing himself out of events anymore. I don't think it's almost, I don't want to do the comparison to Tony Finau again, because it's not there, but like Finau still played okay on Sundays down the end, but just didn't play as well as he needed when other guys really went lights out. And Crocker has been part of some of those. I guess I would say the light version. So, but yeah, you just look at what he continues to do from a ball striking standpoint. I mean, he could have arguably won the BMW PGA, had that Sunday gone a little bit better, but Horschel, of course, was that same scenario. So, I mean, off the tee, ball striking, approach, everything it's just beautiful. And I firmly believe in the talent. And when that talent matches up with still good form and 55-1, he could be McIntyre in the 40s. He could be 33, had two of those Ryder Cup guys not shown up. So I'm probably going to reach a stretch where if Crocker is this number in decent events, I'm just going to bet it because I sweated it at the BMW PGA Championship, not pulling the trigger on him when I did Horsfield with you. And they're very similar in that sense, but Crocker has continued to be better. So I'm going to just plant a flag right there at the nice number and get an each way, and hopefully continues that ball striking.
The reason Crocker didn't win the BMW PGA is because I was there. It is literally the only reason. I followed him every single hole, and every hole I followed him, he burnt the edge. Every time I went away, he birdied. So sorry, Sean, for robbing you of that flagship event. But in all seriousness, like, talking of your point on Sundays, like, he did nothing wrong that day. Like, there was no horrendous out of bounds. There was no misjudgments of hitting the green or bad bunker play or anything like that. Anything you'd expect from a maiden victory chaser. He just simply didn't hold the putts, which is what he's known for, but they weren't bad putts. The speed was great. The lines were great. They just generally burnt edges, or, sometimes they just don't drop. And that definitely was the case. He was playing with Wiesberger. He was being very, conservative, intense. I think he was trying to sort of help him along in that. And then they had people like Billy Horschel going for the win, and that never helped. So very happy, like you say, to take Sean Crocker at those kind of prices. I think like I've said to you so many times in the past, I'll just take these guys at bigger odds in bigger fields because he can win anything. But I don't think there's an issue whether it's the Dunhill Links, the BMW PJ, or the Tenerife Open. It doesn't matter. he will just win a European Tour event and it will come wherever, and then he'll go to the PGA Tour where he belongs.
Yep.
Which would be a sad day for us. But Johannes Veerman, same sort of thinking, really. Other than I think that Veerman maybe just has the edge in performing in some of these more. They weren't really linksy tests because of the conditions, etc. But he was great at the Irish Open. He was third, and then he was eighth at the Scottish Open a week later. Then he was 46th in the Open. Right, I sort of put him up as a bit of a sleeper there because of those form in those two events. Bounced right back and won the Czech Masters. Then he was sixth at the Dutch. Obviously, we were speaking about the Kyle Phillips. Eighth at the Italian Open, which had a kind of bit of a different mix between it. And I think he's just a bit overlooked. Like I talked about Americans just getting a line pushed through them before they even get a chance. And I think that's it. Like people are just going, well, Veerman's been great on certain types of courses, but he won't do a links. There's no evidence of that until he gets to this week at the Dunhill links to shoot 77, 75, 73 and misses the cut. I'm not willing to take that stance. We've seen Brooks Koepka and Chris Stroud come second to Ollison in 2015. Okay, Brooks Koepka, different realm. Peter Uline, 2013. You know, these guys, Edward Law, 2006, was second to Patrick Harrington. Like, Americans come over and play these events well. We've seen it in the Scottish Open as well in the past with Ricky Fowler and Mickelson, etc. So, not to say they're at those levels, but just just putting a line through these Americans just for that sake is just really lazy, I think. And you're just looking at a guy, you talk about guys that are just long-term form. Like there's not been many better than Johannes Veerman over this stretch of golf. So 45-1 and 55-1 about Sean Crocker. About those two guys, I think is a great value for those.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so who, if we lumped them in, so it's Crocker, Veerman, Catlin, Kitayama, right? Would those be the four best American golfers on the European Tour right now?
Yeah, I'd say so. And Kitayama's playing the PGA Tour, so that takes one of them out.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Will any of them make the Ryder Cup in 2023? I just saw the list going crazy on Twitter, and I didn't check close enough to see if anybody would say. It's probably a stretch of any of them.
I think the only one that has the potential to do it, and that just points to the skill level, I think it's Crocker. I think Crocker can just turn into a PGA Tour stud and just climb. I don't think he's quite Brooks Koepka, but he could be on that trajectory.
So, I think the talent is definitely the number one of that.
When Peter Uline was doing what he was doing on the European Tour, he would have been talked about in Ryder Cup team. So I think Crocker can do that. But no, probably not.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I just curious lumping them together. All right, continuing down into the 60s and 70-1. I mentioned I'm going to keep it basic from the start of the show. Look at the form, look at golfers who are playing well. But if you dive into this specific golfer's, I guess, relative form, Matthew Jordan has gone recently. He did miss the cut at the BMW PGA Championship, but he had two top 20s before that. So T15, T4, T47, and a T6. So he had a decent stretch of golf previous to two missed cuts. Prior to that, it was three top 20s in a row. He just turned it around from the beginning of the year where he was utterly just in zero form. But if I had to define who I think is the most underrated links player, arguably in the world, one you'll talk about later, is up there. But Matthew Jordan, has come out of nowhere in a lot of these events and contended. I mean, if you looked at it, would have been the last time this was played, 2019, right? When he was on the Challenge Tour, hitting a T5. If I remember correctly, he was playing with Rory McIlroy on Sunday. And Jordan goes out and shoots, a 68 on that Sunday. I believe Rory, what did he shoot? 67. So they were, kind of dueling it together on that Sunday. But Jordan at the time was a Challenge Tour player, nothing relative to his name. And we've since seen his best finishes. We can see the list of it. You have the Hero Open, which I wouldn't consider, it's got location for him, but not necessarily link style. But you go back down, Scottish Open there. You see the Irish Open is up on that list. The British Masters twice on the list of some of his best golf played. Just a lot of link success. He did it on the Challenge Tour prior and some of those smaller events too. So enough is there as well in his form, in addition to just this underlying links play, that I wasn't going to walk away. I can imagine when I listen to Lost for Words this week that Jason is going to talk about Matthew Jordan for a substantial amount of time because of these kind of corollary finishes that he's had at links events.
It surprised me. I was actually the one waffling. But the thing with Matthew Jordan is, and this is going to completely contradict what I've just said about Bob McIntyre again, and probably just pick on Bob McIntyre. But you look at Matthew Jordan, right? And you look at his results on the OWGR rankings. So he had a fifth in this event, as you've already spoken about. He was a leader after 36 holes, third at the Wales Open, fourth at Crans, the European Masters, sixth at Hero Open, you just spoke about, 18th at the Scottish Open, that really deep field. Another top 10 at the Showdown, a couple of 12s, just a bunch of more top 15s, top 20s. The only difference between that profile and Bob McIntyre is a Cyprus Showdown victory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the only reason not to bet Matthew Jordan this week is because you feel like it's a trap. You feel like everybody is going to be on him because he's finished fifth. He was 32nd on debut and shot 77 on the opening day. Like, he was lights out from the Friday onwards. He won an amateur event here, the Dunhill Links Trophy. Everything about Matthew Jordan says that he can win this event. He's already trending to be a winner anyway. Like, you just spoke about the form, 15th, 4th, 6th in 3 of his last 5 events. And he was terrible at the start of the year, like off the charts bad. And he's just brought it back. And I just believe in the talent. Like, he's come a little bit later than others. Didn't turn professional until a bit later than your average kind of highly promising youngster. Yeah, I just don't. There's no negatives about Matthew Jordan this week.
Yeah, and I think the number, that's not even close to a negative. 70-1 for that. I'm definitely in, and we'll continue.
He missed the cut at Wentworth because, sorry to cut you off, because he missed the cut on the number. If he'd have made the cut and finished 40th or 30th or 20th or whatever, this number could be 40, 50 to 1. And we're getting 70 purely because he missed a cut on a course that probably didn't suit. It's an event that everybody misses the cut in at some point during their career, like even the best players in the world. So it doesn't bother me one bit.
No, I'm more than happy with what we're given. The other one in the range for me that I went back and forth, and it probably was due to a little bit of lack of links experience. Nikolai Højgaard has been exceptional. We see the ball striking, of course, getting his first victory, coming in then with the T20 at maybe a course that doesn't best fit, him at the BMW PGA Championship. But like you've mentioned, you do see a little bit of driving being negated here because anybody could take out and rip driver. You have to really, I guess, hit it wayward to get into those penalty areas or that thick fescue. So I can't go beyond, kind of that range. Now, before we, I guess, discuss our next selections in this range, I'm not going to let us pass our 2023 Ryder Cup star in Guido Migliozzi. Guido's coming back after, I'll say it, an abysmal, performance at Wentworth. It was terrible. I'm hard on the kid when I can be, because we got all the talent in the world and he's just trying. I just really believe in my core. He likes to just bet himself on a little bit longer the number. He doesn't want to be 28-1. No one wants to be 28-1. Live in the 50s. Yeah, live in those 50s, man. Because then you get the each way. You guys over there get maybe 6 or 7 points on these good places on these good events. We might get only T5 over here, but I can't bet that T5 when he's 28-1. So let's double those odds, Guido, and let's run it back this week. He actually, I'm rather confident he was okay here. One of the rounds. Let me pull up. I think
I can't believe we've had a podcast this week where I've praised McIntyre and actually selected him, and you've actually referred to Guido Migliozzi as abysmal. Like, this is Friday. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking for me saying that, but I thought the BMW PGA would have been a huge event for him, and just to play like he did was very disappointing. So, we've had big opportunities at the Open Championship and the BMW PGA. He did very good at Omega, of course, finishing the top 10 there. But Guido loves a bounce back. If you look at his best performances, a second place earlier this year, came after a miscut. He had a second place T33rd. He hasn't been somebody ever who needs any form. So again, we're lining up at the ticket windows with the Guido at 55-1. Talk to me about Callum Hill.
So Callum Hill was someone I went back and forth on quite a bit. And I said to you in the past that I felt like he was overrated in the first instance because I think he took advantage of that kind of resort course schedule that we were playing on in the 2020 European Tour. But that obviously just gave him the confidence he needed to push on. And I think now he's actually living in this space where he should be. when you look at his debut performance here in 2019, he finished 26th, but he was 12th after round one, second after round two, and ninth after round three. And considering the strides that he's made over the last 2 years as well, I don't know just how good he is in wins and things like that. I think there's probably things that you can find online for that, and we can look that up for you. But I just think he's a big number. I think that I'm looking at the guys. It's the same with Crocker. It's the same with Veerman. It's the same with Guido. It's the same with Matthew Jordan. As soon as this week is over, they're going to be 33 to 1, 28 to 1, 25 to 1. You've just got to take them at this number. And I'm not just doing it purely because of number, because there is every reason to take them as well. But yeah, Callum Hill, I just think he's got a great profile. He's a massively improving player. There's probably still, he hasn't really got anything to prove because he's won. But I think there's another step up. Like you mentioned this in Wentworth. He's disappointed at Wentworth like Guido did. So now is his chance to kind of elevate himself, have a great performance here, and then take himself into that DP World Tour season ending thing and start the new year off right.
What Callum did, I guess what he has done for, I think it's the last 10 rounds. 10 rounds. Like it's every other day. I mean, even if you look at Wentworth, he misses the cut, I think by 2 strokes. He goes 78 in the opening round. Then he shoots 67, one of the better rounds of the day. The best round of the day was 65. So, he shoots 67, misses the cut. No one else shot better than that who missed the cut on that day. There was a few 68s who ended up missing the cut, but, bounces back. If he would have just shot par, you have no idea what that weekend could have been. And he had done that habitually with a low round of the day almost in there for the last couple of events, of course, picking up a win not too long ago. So I do like you staying the course with Callum Hill. I'm going to stick on another golfer who I think's, I was actually shocked at the number. Like I would have probably bet Marcel Siem at like 50, 55. Again, I'm not reliant on spitting out my own odds and saying, all right, there's a little bit of value there. It's almost a little bit of feel when we're looking at Marcel Siem. You see him T15th at the Dutch Open, probably nowhere near the actual golf he played. I thought he was, again, we've ran so cold with these each ways coming through after being in the mix. I mean, he could have been the first round leader easily with Niall Kearney in the first 18 holes of the Dutch Open. But, he kind of hit the water late, I believe, on 18. But he just, played steady golf, 68, 69, 71, 69. After you made a great comment last time we talked about Marcel Siem on him saying he had to pull out from his home country's event due to having a little shoulder injury. So he comes back from that and plays outstanding again. Potentially the Italian Open was a little bit of a misfinish with that T34 due to a little bit of injury. So we see that he's just ripping off top 20s then. So I think 90 to 1, and I've seen a few people on him that I trust quite a bit. So I don't think that number is probably going to last much longer. So hopefully, again, I'm okay into the 66s, and for him, which he could end up being by tomorrow morning. But Marcel Siem for sure has that same formula I'm looking at. In form for extended period of time, driven by the ball striking.
And he's just a guy, right? He's just a very solid European Tour operator who's playing. This stretch of golf is as good as he's ever played in his career, and he's a multiple winner. He was the type of guy that you never knew. He's a bit like Pablo Larrafa in the sense that he would just turn up every now and then and win, and you wouldn't really expect it. But always at Wentworth, I remember him being there. Like I used to go to Wentworth, regularly, and he'd just be on a leaderboard, and you think, what's he doing here? And look back at his, Dunhill links form. He's got a lot of middling form to start off with, 3 missed cuts, and then finishes between 27th and 42nd. But two of his last 4 finishes here, have been 11th and 15th. So, that's pretty impressive for a guy that, I guess he's a more classical golfer. Like he's not the modern day guy that rips it down the, 320 down the middle of the fairway and wedges in everything. But that's not what you need in this test. If it gets tough on Friday, which is expected to be 40-mile-an-hour winds, you need the guys that have just been operating around this sort of golf course for 20 years or whatever. And that's why I've taken a couple of guys, to talk about later on. And it's a shame that the DraftKings odds aren't out because, all the numbers aren't out because we could probably talk about some of those lower salary guys. But I think he's just one of those guys, right, that you trust to get the job done no matter what the conditions are. And I think that's something you need to look at.
And talk about, I guess, relative links for him recently. Open Championship was his best event, arguably of the year, So really do like him in this range. One I struggle to leave out. You brought him up this morning when we were talking. Seems to be a little bit of a popular too due to his Scottish, Open win. Minwoo Lee could make some sense. Has done it in, I wouldn't say, I guess conditions were kind of gross at the Scottish Open on Sunday. Not enough that it's like 40-mile-an-hour wind. I think that win in Australia, did have, I mean, I can just picture that stinger he had late at the Vic Open where he could use that. I don't know if it's enough to say he has this Lynx caliber to him, but the number is pretty good for Minwoo.
So I think I was caught because you see the Scottish Open win, and you see the fact he's won in Australia, and you think, right, well, and he is Australian, that he's got all that kind of things going for him that there generally should be a good links indicator. The trouble is, like you say, you've not seen him in those conditions. And I started off the top of the show by saying, don't talk yourself out of it if you believe in the talent. And you're looking at Minwoo Lee, he's like 80-1, he was 90-1 earlier on. I think there was even some hundreds at some point, which is crazy for a guy who's won as recently he has, performed okay since he's won as well. And we're just seeing a massive upside in him. So I think that he's I guess he's a more volatile selection. Like you talk about someone like Thomas Dietrich, Crocker, Veerman, they're all very consistent. Matthew Jordanstone's a bit of a consistent player. And then when you get to this number, you're starting to look at guys. You mentioned Nikolai Højgaard that can just turn up. Marcel Siem can just turn up. Minwoo Lee will just turn up at some point. So I think that is, you're looking at this range now. Like there's Tom Lewis at 100-1. There's Matthias Schmid at 100-1. Danny Willett, I'm going to talk about in a minute, 100-1. Like there's guys now that they may not look great prices on paper because of the obvious negatives against them, but they are guys that know what to do when they get in the mix.
Yeah. And you talked through a good one. I think Jamie Donaldson's another one who, finished second at the BMW PGA Championship, had an eagle putt on the last to push Billy Horschel a little bit. So not enough relative for me. I really wanted to bet Matthias Schmid. I think that number is good. I wouldn't talk anybody out of that. Was very good. The last two times we've seen him has been ball strike driven when we've seen him at his best. We don't have a ton of data on that, but that kid can play. Vincent Norman also got a chance to tee it up this week. He was a late field ad, did miss his last two cuts on the European Tour after that great stretch of form. But also what's going on in America right now, if you pay attention to the qualifying schools that are happening for the Korn Ferry Tour, they just completed the first stage. Vincent Norman was one of the golfers who made it to second stage under the radar. I don't think many people kind of realized he was playing that. There's a couple other golfers later on. So rooting on Vincent Norman to get a Korn Ferry Tour card. I go deeper for my final selection before I would like to talk through a few of the guys. But you said you touched on Danny Willett there. What do you like about Willett this week?
Just before I go on to Willett, just to come back to Jamie Donaldson, because I actually spoke about him a lot on the podcast, Lots of Words, in the sense that it feels like we talk about these older guys at the second point of their career, like Richard Bland is the second point of his career. Jamie Donaldson is probably the third point of his career, right? He had his career before the Ryder Cup, then he had that little run of form of wins, and then the Ryder Cup. Then he fell apart. He cut his hand off in a chainsaw and all sorts of things. Then in the lockdown last year, he was contending, and then you'd suddenly just see him rolling around like a tortoise on his back in the fairway because he's too old to get over his back condition. And then all of a sudden, he starts popping up 2 top 3 finishes in the last 5 starts. And like you say, just putting himself right in contention at Wentworth. Has, again, and his kind of course form reads like that as well. Like he was 8th and 9th here in the past between 2 missed cuts. Then he was 26th and 13th. And then he's missed 4 cuts. So I really don't know what to do with Jamie Donaldson, but I would not be surprised should he be there come Sunday. And it's the same with Danny Willett, right?
Yeah.
Were you going to say something about Donaldson?
No, I was just going to say Donaldson's probably going to be like 7,500 on DraftKings this week and be like 30% on because everyone plays. If you run a statistical model, it's like he's undervalued every single week. But go ahead on Willett.
Yeah. So with Willett, I don't really buy into Willett because he was a guy that you can never take away from the fact that he won the Masters. But then everything subsequently since then has been based on the fact that he won the Masters. And it was like, he was kind of like 35-1 and like 50-1 for events he had absolutely no chance of winning because his form was just horrendous. Now he's starting to get out to the numbers that I kind of think that he can win at again. Like he's 100-1. And you look at the fact that he's on links where he's played incredibly good stuff in the past. I think he's got a 2nd and a 6th at this golf course. I think there's a ninth in there as well. I can't quite remember, but it's just it's just consistent. Second, fifth, and a sixth, and then he was 26th here in 2019 as well. And that's not a long time, really, is it? I mean, we've had that kind of lockdown period in between then. And you look at his current form, and it looks bad on paper, but he's had like decent finishes. Like he played pretty well at the Open Championship. He missed the cut in other places, but just like on the number, and that's fine with me as well. I mean, the 71st at Wentworth, not great, former winner of that, but 33rd at the Open, 26th at Memorial PGA Tour, 11th at the British Masters, 18th at the Heritage. Like he's a guy that's kind of got stuck in between two tours again, like he would do. He's always going to get starts over there because of his profile. If he just comes back to what he does well, which is links golf, which is regular high level European Tour events, I think he could. I think he's just a volatile chance this week, and another guy I'm going to talk about like later on as well. So it's a bit of rambling about Danny Willett without any too much conviction, but I think the 100-1 number is pretty good.
And those type of guys make perfect DraftKings plays too. Where the upside for playing them when no one wants to is, you have a huge GPP, opportunity. The one for me, as I wrap up kind of my card with the outright picks, Francesco Laporta. I guess I'm breaking my rule of looking for an extended amount of form, but when it's 150-1 and you go a sixth and a fourth, one of those being at the BMW PGA Championship, and then getting these numbers, Italian Open's a massive event for Laporta as well, so two big time finishes for him in back-to-back events. We know the talent he has. He was the best player on the Challenge Tour that year, where he had those two victories. And I think, another 6 top fives that year. He was outstanding. He was arguably the Santiago Tario of that year. Tario is also priced at 100-1, but we've seen a little bit more under the belt of Laporta than some of these other golfers, but the same number. He also rocks some wicked fashion on the course, which probably knocks off, 25 points for him on the outright. So I am a fan of Laporta overall, and he can tee it up with the best of these guys. I really believe it. We've seen it in small stretches.
Yeah, and like you say, is again the first knock will be, can he do it on links golf? And I just think when you're hitting the ball the way he's hitting it, this weather that gets talked about might not come around. I think it probably will. I think there will be winds, but you've just got to ride one day, right? And if his ball striking is the way that it is, and he has a level par round, and he can just make up for that at Kings Barnes. I mean, it just depends where you are on that day. Like if you're at Carnoustie when it's 40-mile-an-hour winds, you're not winning the championship. You just can't win because you're going to go and shoot 77, 78, and you're going to get derailed, and that's just luck of the draw, and we can't do anything with that until kind of Wednesday night. So DraftKings, again, that would be the massive focus, is just see who's playing where in the wind.
And we have showdown contests. They're going to be small again, but there will be showdown contests. So like a lot of people do at Pebble Beach when they stack specific courses, you can do that here. So take advantage of those forecasts.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that would be remiss to mention is Joachim Lagergren. 3 top 4 finishes at links and a 12th at this event. Now, those have come in contention. They've come well out of contention. They've come in everything in between. He's won the Sicilian Open, another Carl Phillips design. It's just how many times you go to the well with someone like Lagergren. Like, I think the winning upside is not there. I don't know if he's quite playing as well as he has done when he's been 3rd, 4th, and 4th in the past. So it's more likely to be a 6th, 7th, 8th, 12th place finish like he's already shown. But again, he's going to be massively popular in DraftKings because everyone's just going to see that course and go to him. So maybe you take the opposite approach and fade him. But the one other guy that I was going to talk about, maybe two, Matthew Southgate. I think he's kind of a guy that you see links golf and you just go, he's 150-1, just back him. Right? He missed, it was 4 cuts first 4 times in his appearances. He's played really, really well in the Open Championship and then done nothing here. And then he all of a sudden just finished 2nd in 2019. Which is massive, right? And he's improved as a golfer since.
That's the golfer you mentioned earlier when I said there's another one who's arguably one of the most underrated links players in the world. It's Southgate.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous, right? Like his Open Championship record is so good. And everyone just kind of looks at him and goes, oh, he can only play well on links. And that's a great thing to have when you come into a links event. It's also not true. Like he was 2nd in the European Open in Germany. He was 26th at Scottish Open, but 34th Italian, 35th at Wentworth. But you just look at guys second in the Dunhill Links, second in the Irish Open, sixth in the Open Championship, 12th in the Open Championship, fourth at the Irish Open again. France to get a bit of weather, tied fifth and tied 11th. Like, just take the guys that play these courses well. Like, we see it on the PGA Tour all the time. There's a massive focus on like putting surfaces, East Coast versus West Coast. Just take the guys that just feel comfortable in links golf. He's clearly playing well enough. He's had a middling form, but nothing terrible for quite a long period. He's only missed 2-3 cuts in the last kind of 9-10 events. Like, just take the guy that's hitting the ball pretty well, and then just going to like the surfaces as well, the links track. So 150 to 1, pretty good outright number. Great DraftKings play. The one a lot longer than that, Chris Wood. And this is a flyer because you're banking on years old data, really, that he was, again, a bit like Alex Noren, was just going to play really well in Open Championships, possibly win one because he finished third and fifth in 2 of them. And you can't ignore that, right? Like, he's won Wentworth, he's won Qatar, which gets that linksy feel every now and then, 2 Open Championship top 5 performances, another good finish at Wentworth. And yeah, I just think he's shown a bit of life. 32nd at the Dutch Open, 32nd at Kazoo Open. 4 miscuts in between there. It's just that it's kind of a lot of work to do, but 11th at the Betfred British Masters, 21st Austria. I'm basically hoping that the weather gets terrible and he's the guy that can kind of take advantage of it, because there is just no quitting him. Like, that is probably the dream scenario for him, is that everyone just wants to quit and he'll just play on, because he's sick of making 77s on good days. So if he can make a 71 when everyone else is crying about 73, 74, he's just going to feel great about himself. So that would be the route to victory, would be a horrendous weather for Chris Wood. But we'll see.
Absolutely. Without DraftKings being out, I am actually going to change our segment, and it's just going to be a running list of guys that are coming into mind that when I think about for the long shots or T20s, when those odds markets come out. You've gone in a couple. I'm going to kind of wrap us up here with just a little laundry list of guys that I am definitely going to have some exposure to going down. Ewan Ferguson is playing this week, probably a top 5 Challenge Tour player from this part of the world. Of course, represented by Niall Horan as well with Guido Migliozzi. So I think Ewan Ferguson is an exceptional player. Mac Meisner is getting his first European Tour start. I don't know if it's Meisner, Mac. If you will go on the OWGR or Wagger, he had a pretty prolific amateur career. He played the Mackenzie Tour this summer where he notched a win and 2 other top 10. So I think he's pretty intriguing in the T20 market. MJ Dafu is going to be teaming up this week. MJ, who was known for ripping through the Monday qualifiers this past 2 years, also qualified through first stage, took a second place finish that week. He's got a ton of talent, has never really made it realized on the big tours yet. So I think he can make some noise this week. The field is littered with the PGA Tour of Australasia, as well as I think it's the Sunshine Tour guys that are kind of co-sanctioned into getting these from top 10 spots. However, on those order of merits, it's a combination of 2019 and 2021, because a lot of those tours have not played. That's why Bryden McPherson got some starts in the past. He is playing here as well. But the talents that I love on the Australasia Tour, one, Travis Smith is very good. Smyth, blonde. I think he's got some long hair. He is exceptional. Played some Monday Qs as well. Travis Smith is just very talented. He's there. Another golfer who did not really pan out after, I guess that's a harsh statement. He has not gotten opportunities to take advantage of what he had in some really good form. Denzel Iriema is teeing it up this week. Iowa State grad. I believe he finished top 10 in the Matt Jones Aussie Open event, which probably would have been by far Iriema's best finish when you look at, he was T5 that week, as well as a T4 in the Asia Pacific Open in his career. So has played well in some wind from that part of the world. So Iriema, we see Jack Dyer, Joe Long, John Murphy, Matty Lamb, some of these golfers who are on the Walker Cup team, Ben Jones, all playing this week. So a lot of talents get the opportunity to do it. We've talked about Matthew Jordan did it in 2019. There is going to be a guy from this litter play well this week. So I like to kind of spray and pray on DraftKings on some of the lower ends. Even if we only get a 35 lineup max, it makes a difference if you can find these guys 1 to 2% owned. So that's my little monologue there, Tom. Let's come to a close. Rewind on that betting card of yours for us.
Yep. So I absolutely love Johannes Veerman and McIntyre. So McIntyre 35 to 1, Veerman 45 to 1. Callum Hill there at 55 to 1. Matthew Jordan, I think it was about 70 to 1. And then there's just a kind of plethora of guys. I think Danny Willett is interesting. Jamie Donaldson, you mentioned, is pretty interesting. And then Chris Wood, I think, is worth looking into, that top 20 market that you talked about there.
Yeah, love those. I'm going with Thomas Dietrich, 40 to 1. Sean Crocker, 55. Guido Migliazzi. I'm feeling better about it already, Tom. 55 to 1. Matthew Jordan, 70s. Marcel Seam, 90. And then Francesco Laporta, 150. And again, I might sprinkle in some of that T20 market of a few guys on that list. Always tweet out my betting card. You can find me at Skyhook DFS. Tom, they can find you at Tom Jacobs 93, correct?
Correct.
All right. Another Lost for Words will be out this evening. If you guys want to follow us on any of the audio formats, please feel free, rate, review, subscribe to us. If you want to get in on NFTs live, into the buzzing NFT market, you can find that on the Mayo Media Network as well. But at our hearts, we always love the European tour, and we just, we're a little sad from what last week is, but we delivered for a good show, Tom. 2023 is almost here. I can almost taste the wine in Italy at the Ryder.
The wine and meatballs, watching Guido Migliazzi. It's going to be a great event. Look, this is a good week for the European Tour. We feel good about it. I'm not too sad. I kind of expected the result. So we move.
Yep, we have to. Eyes forward, always. Good luck, everybody, this week. And you can find us, and please feel free, reach out. Questions, DM us on Twitter, tweet at us. We'd love to interact with you guys. Everybody, good luck.